Hey guys, happy 4th of July. Hope everybody's having a good 4th of July weekend so far. Let me take this off the just checking a few things. Alright, I just wanted to make sure that everything that I was doing was set up correctly and wasn't going overboard. It added the camera underneath as an audio when it had me all messed up. So I gotta double check real quick. Okay, yeah, I did get that fixed. All right, sorry about that. Trying to get everything adjusted and creating the new scenes and everything, and I was a little bamboozled on that. Hoping you guys are having a good 4th of July weekend. Stay safe out there. Stay safe. But have a lot of fun, of course. There's so many events going on everywhere. The roads are going to be jam-packed. The events are going to be jam-packed with people. Stay hydrated when you're out there in the hot sun. Make sure that if you're going to be out there and it's cold and it's wet in the evenings, that bring a blanket. Have a jacket or something to keep yourself, your children, warm. If you're messing with fireworks, be safe with that. As somebody who's almost blown themselves up once, it happens to the best of us, right? I'm not the best of us by any means. I'm not trying to say that, but just stay safe out there. Try to take care of yourselves. I wanted to hit this real quick. I didn't want to do this before 4th of July weekend initially, because we're going into the holiday. And I know, let's just, celebrate the holiday, the community, one another, and I'll be happy. That would be fantastic if we could do that. Unfortunately, it's not always that easy for everybody. So I've got some friends that have been looking for somebody to vent to talk to console them even a little bit with this whole bill that went through, this budget bill. First, I want to touch on the fact that this should be something that hopefully will set into stone people's understanding a little bit more of how budgets work with presidents. When they get into office, they don't immediately affect the federal budget whatsoever, right? That first year or first couple of months, whatever, it's still the last administration's budget. So right now we're still on the Biden administration's budget that they set at the end of last year, which got implemented at the beginning of 2025. Those budgets that get passed through the Senate and Congress, and usually have a lot of presidential influence. Those get set the year before and get voted on the year before they're implemented. So the first year of any presidency is still using the last administration's budget, right? So I see a lot of people who they'll say, well, look at the success that we had in this year or that year. And 99% of the time when they're trying to make those points, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, they're talking about like the first year presidents in office, like, oh, look at all the turns. Well, that was still from a budget from the year before. The tax changes to the codes for people, whether it's you, your family, a small business, a large corporation, all those tax changes are set in those annual budgets, and those are all agreed upon before the year that they're implemented. Typically a couple of months, so usually at least half a year if they can, because it's a large governmental impact. So they want to get those in as early as possible, which is it's important, but it's also important to get it done right. So usually it's not rushed through the way that this bill was. And for a people, conservative voters usually talk about how they hate pork being loaded into a bill. It's one of the talking points that I see a lot from conservative voters, is that they absolutely hate all this stuff being tossed into a bill, and they think it's BS and unfair and blah blah blah. And the problem with that is that when you say that you don't want all of this stuff to be loaded into a bill, but then the budget that you're passing is just absolutely blown up with all kinds of BS that was just added in and thrown in there. Um, you can't be on both sides of something like this, and it happens a lot with politics. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not going to say it's one party or another party. Um, it does happen quite a bit, and I get it. At federal levels, you're trying to put through as much legislation as possible, and sometimes the most effective way to do that is to add many things together into a bill to get it all done at once. It's just time management in some cases. Sometimes it's trying to make a deal. You want to get your ideas pushed through, and they want some of their ideas pushed through to so that they will agree with your ideas. So there are reasons that are actually really good for why they would you'll do things like that. Well, you'll have multiple things within a bill, but in this case, the deals being made were strictly from the president agreeing to give certain tax breaks, or the federal government giving tax breaks to individual states for those Republican leaders to fold and to capitulate. Uh, these holdout conservative congressmen and senators who absolutely were not for this plan um, decided that they would toe the line if their state was given something specific. For one fellow, I think it was a senator, I can't remember. He owns a bunch of gun stores, and his the thing that got him on board was removing sales tax from silencers in his state. He owns a bunch of gun stores, so he stands to make a sizable profit off of something like that. But I just want to ask, one, why are you selling that many silencers in a state? That seems weird. You don't need silencers to hunt. Usually, if you're a good hunter and you shot the deer, he falls over, and the amount of noise you make after that with a gun is irrelevant. I don't know why you would even be shooting after that one. If you miss the deer in the first shot, I don't think he's gonna hear that little from the silencer. It obviously doesn't sound like that. For those who haven't heard what a silencer sounds like outside of a movie, they're not accurate on all silencers because they're using very different silencers than what you would typically use. But it's not a loud noise, but it's still an alien noise in nature. It's something that would make them like, but if you're using silencers to hunt, you're not a good hunter anymore. And I'm afraid that you don't need the silencer, number one. Number two, do we honestly think most people buying silencers are doing so for hunting? It's certainly not for a home defense. All right, you're not Liam Neeson. Somebody hasn't broken into your home and you have a very special set of skills, and you will defend your home. Let's be realistic. There's no good reason for selling any large volume of silencers. Number one. Number two, there's not a good reason for you to decide that you need to remove sales tax. I'm just going to speak for on behalf of the women right now. I'm not going to speak for the women. I'm going to speak on behalf of them a little bit because I have 4 daughters. I have a wife, and I know I have friends that are women, and I know one of the things that women talk about a lot is the pink tax. For those of you guys who don't know what the pink tax is, it's the tax on women that all of their products are kind of they're overpriced. They really are. Not only that, but the vast majority of them, even like tampons, pads, whatever, they have to pay sales tax on that. It's a necessary biological function. It's not equivocal to having a bowel movement. This is something that happens once a month, and it's absolutely imperative to their health that they have something that cleans it and takes it away. So it should be something. If we were going to remove a sales tax from something, remove sales tax from tampons and pads. Make it so women aren't paying like a crazy amount of money just to survive and stay healthy and stay sanitary. I think that's reasonable. But removing sales tax from silencers for firearms, that's That's not reasonable. But that's one of the things that they did to get these Republican holdouts on board. The gal from Alaska who absolutely was not going to vote for this bill, she completely caved. Everybody knew Murkowski, I believe it was. Everybody knew she was going to cave. But her big thing, the thing that she got was lower taxes on, what was it, crab fishing captains up there or something like that. Just absolutely ridiculous things. So they absolutely voted to remove all this money that's going to Medicaid and food stamps, and they're assuring you that it's only going to hurt bad people. That's how they get this thing through every single time. And anybody who actually deals with this stuff or actually knows people who work in these industries will tell you repeatedly that it's not just bad people that get hurt. As a matter of fact, it's mostly not bad people that get hurt. The vast majority of the people who end up losing the care and the assistance, they're good people. They're the people who need it. They're trying to do everything right, and then they're going to get stripped because you guys are so afraid of a handful of other people getting extra assistance that you're just going to get it removed. And that's nuts. So I can't agree with that. It's just mind boggling that they get to use fear. They get to tell you that all these people are bad people. And, unfortunately, they're going to hurt so many good American families over this. And I know single people don't care. People without kids, they really don't care because most of the time this isn't affecting them. It's not affecting their children. Now they're going to say, well, I've heard this argument a million times. Well, it's your choice to have kids. Yeah, it is. And it's your choice to not have kids. And it's your choice to do all the things you want to do. But that's the beauty of America is we believe in freedom, but we also believe in society. We also believe in taking care of one another. We also believe in roads for everybody. We believe in having waste treatment for everybody. We believe in having fresh water for everybody. So we take things called taxes from everybody, just a little bit, on every sale, on the things that you may own that are technically luxuries, on property that you own within our counties. And you say, hey, we're going to take just that little bit and we're going to use that to pay for systems that help everybody. We're going to put it into a school that helps educate all of the kids. And you're going, well, I don't have kids. Why should I have to pay school tax? Taxes for school for kids that I've never had. Well, one day you might. Maybe you don't want it now, but maybe 15, 20 years in the future, you do want it. And if somebody else at that point was like, well, why should I have to? And suddenly the government was like, you're right, let's not. And you had to pay for your kid's entire education all by your little lonesome. Well, guess what? That's going to suck for you. Because now that you're spending $20,000 to $40,000 a year to educate your kid because the government decided they're not going to use taxes, public taxes, to pay for that anymore. That's why you have to pay for it. Because just because you don't make a decision today doesn't mean you're not going to make that decision in the future. And it's important to take care of everybody. Now, let's say we didn't use taxes to do all of this stuff. Now you don't have fresh water unless you can figure out your own fresh water. Now you don't have somewhere for your sewage to go unless you can figure it out, and you have to pay for it on your own. Let's say the fire department doesn't come unless you pay a sum of money up front. Because they can't do it afterwards. You've lost everything. They're probably not going to get paid then. So now you're going to have to pay them like an insurance company just in case you have a fire. And no, the little bit of tax that goes into the fire department from you every year is not even close to what you would pay an insurance company for that same kind of service. Trust me. It's wild that people, they don't realize how much all this stuff is. You want these roads. Well, here's the thing about roads. I see this one a lot too. People want to talk about roads, why they're not fixed, and who's responsible for fixing them. I can break it down for you fairly easy this way. If it's a state highway, it goes by state funding. The states are responsible for choosing to fix it or not fix it. The county or the city can get a hold of them and put in, be like, hey guys, we need you to fix it over here. And that's what we do. But it essentially doesn't come out of any of our monies to do so. And we are not in charge of getting that done. It has to go through the state because they own that road and they have to take care of it. And they're probably going to hire somebody local to do it, or some semi-local to do it, or they may have their own highway crews that do it, depending on the situation. County roads are owned by the county, so the county takes care of all of that. And then you've got your standard streets, standard roads that are within your area, depending on boulevards, avenues, all of them. The only reason that those are named different things, there's small structural changes in each one. I don't remember them all off the top of my head exactly what differentiates an avenue or a boulevard or a street or road, or whatever the case may be. They're small little things, but all of those within a township or city are owned by the city or township, and they have budgets for taking care of many of those. So each level has its own road structures that it takes care of. So if you want somebody to fix a road and you want to know why it's not done, you have to know who owns that road and who's responsible for repairing that road. And then you want to get into contact with those agencies to see, what's going on with that. They're the ones who can tell you the best. I just hear that question a lot. But back to the bill. So the bill got passed. Yes. And that sucks. I'm going to be honest. I was a huge one against it. Unfortunately, so much in our political world has, especially with the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party is one that just, they stick together even when they absolutely do not believe in a piece of legislation. They can absolutely hate a piece of legislation, but they will primary people who don't stick with the party. And if you don't know what that means, because the world of politics is kind of crazy now, I get that. To primary somebody means that in the next election that they run for their state, if they're running for Congress or a Senate seat, they have to run in primaries for that party, right? To get that party's nomination. So if they don't do a bunch of stuff with the party, if they oh, I'm not against, or I'm not for this, it can be one piece of legislation that they're against, that they just think like, this is a bridge too far. I'm here to serve my people. I don't believe this is in line with my people. I think this is going to hurt my people. Especially if congressmen and senators, they represent people in their states. They have policy that impacts the entire nation, but they're speaking on behalf of the people in their state districts. So when they say they're voting on stuff and they're not, their job is to represent your specific state in that, right? And not just the Republican or conservative voices in that. That's not what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be representing all of the people. They're supposed to be considering even the people in the parties that don't align with them specifically. They still are trying to represent and take care of those people. That's what they're supposed to be doing. So what the problem that we have right now with the Conservative Party, and it does happen in the Democratic Party too, but I would say nowhere near as much. And if you can look at the past voting records, you will see dissension among Democrats on key votes where things are going to hurt people. So it's important to pay attention to that, because right now in the Conservative Party, what you're seeing is if somebody doesn't go along with even one bill or one piece of legislation, they get threatened to be primaried. And that means that they're going to put all this money from the RNC isn't going to go to help them run their campaign the next time. The RNC, the Republican National Committee, is going to now take all of the funds that would have gone to help them run, and they'll find another candidate that wants to be the Republican nominee in that area, and they'll put a bunch of that funding into that person instead and give them a huge leg up, which which kind of highlights two things. One, is your vote actually mattering in the Conservative Party if the Conservative Party is basically choosing your nominees and your representatives for you? Think about that. If your congressmen, your senators are so worried about the RNC choosing a different nominee to fund, knowing that they will absolutely lose that primary because of that funding from the RNC, do you still believe your voice actually matters? Do you still believe that you're choosing the best candidate to represent your party? Because even within a party, not everybody should agree. Because if I'm representing this, the 2nd district of Wisconsin, and people are making a vote and they want everything to align with something that's 1st district of Georgia, and it is something that's just absolutely horrible for my district in Wisconsin. It's appropriating tons of funds away. The funds that we would get would be misappropriated for the population in my district. But I would be expected to go along with that because I'm part of this party, or I would lose my seat and then I wouldn't be able to fight for my people. But here's the thing. If you have to constantly concede points, you're not fighting for your people anymore. You're not making that headway for your people. You're not speaking on behalf of your people. Why are you even there anymore? If your party forces you to not fight for your people, to not represent your people that are in your state or in your district effectively, just to stay in that seat, then what's the point? You're not governing anymore. You're just pencil whipping. You're just saying, yes, king. Yes, party leaders. My voters don't actually get a choice. I acknowledge that. My voters don't get a choice because it's all about funding from the RNC. And if I don't do what they want me to do, then I lose all of my funding. They're just going to give it to some other candidate, and they're going to absolutely badmouth me on TV and convince everybody that I'm a bad guy. And now facts don't matter anymore. It's all about feelings. It's all about propaganda. It's all about the monies coming from these corporations, from Citizens United, and they're going to fund somebody else who's going to help them get their tax breaks. That's what this bill should highlight for you guys. Because even the people who really, really didn't like this bill caved. They knew it was going to hurt the people in their district, and they caved. They knew that it was going to cripple, there's going to be elderly people. There's going to be people who have long-term disabilities or illnesses that are preventing them from getting from one day to the next without some form of care, whether it be at a hospital or at home. And all of that's going to go away. Food assistance for so many families. I had this conversation the other day that people don't realize that in their own small communities, even, ours is a town of, I think 10,000 people, just under 10,000 people. And I had a conversation with a fellow who absolutely believed, see you guys later. They believe that people in our community weren't going without meal, that there was nobody in our community who have actual struggles with food. And it's just not true. It's not true at all. It's crazy that they think this. Like the fact that so many parents within communities like mine can be relieved that the school has a free lunch program and a free breakfast program, and that takes such a financial burden off of them. They can afford to buy the suppers. They can afford to make sure that the kid has, some kind of fast, high-speed internet. Well, just internet now. Maybe a cell phone in this day and age, because you got to track your kid. You got to be able to get a hold of them all the time with the risks of school shootings. We had a school shooting in the school here in our small town a couple of years back. So it doesn't become a question anymore of some of those things. People see them as luxuries, but when you're a parent and you're dealing with a lot of the situations that parents are dealing with, you understand that some of these things, they're not luxuries anymore, that they're necessities. They're absolutely necessities. Yeah, do I think an 8-year-old needs one or a 10-year-old or something like that? No, I don't think that. But there comes to a point where they definitely do. If they're athletes and they're going to be on the road, they can let you know what time they're going to be home. Things of that nature. Things come up. You can Venmo them some money on a phone, then they can, get some food real quick or something. There's things that are important. I am not one of the families that are struggling to feed my children, but I'm fortunate that way. And my kids are all going to, they all work, and two of them are going to college, and we are squeaking by on that. It's not easy, but we're making it work. A lot of people can't. And to be honest with you, there's more people than there are a lot of jobs out there. That's why the gig economy started exploding. Um, COVID showed people that it can be done, and more people are doing it. That's why you're seeing less and less people looking for jobs in retail. But that's coming back. But the problem is with the inflation and everything else. When inflation hits, your revenue goes down. You're making less net profit. And that's a big deal to these companies, obviously. It should be, because their stocks are hinged upon it. And that's what most businesses that's gone public, they're all about their stock value. Um, I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go too into that right now. But this bill it's terrible, but it's not going to start impacting us until 2026 fiscal year, usually around what, February, I think it is, January, February, for the federal government. I want to say February, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look again, double check, but it will not take effect until 2026. So there is still time to possibly do some changes or try to get it gutted. But even if it goes as it is right now, I don't want you guys to worry too much, because it can have, I don't want to actually even say don't worry too much. I don't want people to panic. There are some bad things that are likely going to happen, yeah. And unfortunately, we can't necessarily prevent them right now, because it would take the Republican Party, a number of Republicans to suddenly grow a spine and say no. But they had the effort. They had the opportunities in Congress the first time. They had the opportunities in the Senate when it went there, and they had the opportunities in Congress again when it came back for finalized passing. And the ones that were holding out, hoping everybody else would, somebody else would be the one who stood up and said no, they caved. Anybody in politics anywhere, whether it's your city, your county, your state legislature, you can't hope that somebody else is going to be the one that doesn't go along when you're absolutely planning to be one of the ones that goes along. Everybody else could be hoping that somebody else is going to be the one to stand up so that they don't have to, when what they really want to do is also say no. But if nobody's willing to have the courage to stand up and say no, then why should anybody else have the courage? But that's another thing. You're electing people with no backbone. They're going to tell you they don't want this. They're going to tell you that it's bad, and then they're going to vote for it anyway because they don't have enough backbone to stand up and fight for you. They're literally on the news channels telling you this is a bad deal, this is a bad bill, all the bad things that are in it. And then they go, but yeah, I'm going to vote for it. And then they're going to try to rationalize it over the next week. And this wasn't Democrats alone saying it was bad. There was a bunch of Republicans who were saying they didn't like what was in the bill, or they didn't know something was in the bill and they disagreed heavily with a bunch of these things. The bill does things that they said they weren't even going to do, like cutting Medicaid and cutting food share and cutting assistance for people. In heavily red states, the majority of the food share that you see per capita is in red states. Do you see more density of it in some Democratic states? Yeah, because you're looking at, cities like LA or San Diego or the just Los Angeles, or I said LA, Atlanta. You're looking at large cities, and you're going, oh yeah, but look at how many people are using it there. Yeah, but you're looking at a city of hundreds of thousands to millions of people, and you're comparing that to your average city of like 10 to 15,000 people, and going, but yeah, they've got more there. Yeah, they got way more people, but overall, it's red states that, one, have lower domestic products. The state makes less money overall to give back to its people by taxes, and a lot of that, they're getting a lot of federal subsidies that are paid for by these states that have much higher GDPs that are paying a lot more into the federal government in taxes. And that's, a lot of it's coming from states like California, New York, some from Florida. We'll grant Florida, but when you're talking about a lot of it coming from Orlando, Florida, and tourist destinations, and those tourists are coming from all over the place. So let's not pretend like it's Florida itself. I'm not saying that people aren't visiting LA or anything like that, but movie production is where you get a lot of the money out of LA, Hollywood. And that's way more than the tourism. Oop, my wife is messaging me. I'm going to finish this up in just a minute here, but I want you guys to really think about this going into this weekend, because this weekend is about celebrating the 4th of July and our independence. And our independence came from people who had the courage to stand up to people who they were supposed to agree with. And they said, no, hell no, we are not going to capitulate anymore. We're not going to let rich people who own all these big companies, these dukes and these earls and these kings, we're not going to let all of these guys who own everything tell us what to do anymore. They don't get to be the voices that control the people. We now represent ourselves. That's how our government's going to be. We're going to take this country for us, and our government's going to speak for us. It's going to listen to us, and it's going to speak for us, and it's going to work by voting on a majority, and it's going to be a government of and for and by the people. We're not going to have dukes. We're not going to have earls. And now we do. Corporations are your dukes and earls, and they're collecting all these taxes through revenue that they make and giving it to their king, which is their politicians, the little higher up dukes and earls. And they're paying them in interests and bribes and motorhomes for their Supreme Court judges, vacations for all these folks. They give them favors in kind a lot of the times, not just cash, but things worth far more. So when you guys say you're celebrating the 4th, but you're all good with people who are supporting that, after literally voting for this guy because you thought he was going to be the person who ended that exact sort of thing, and he's only exacerbated that thing. Exacerbation, for you, those of you who don't know the word, means they've made it so much bigger. They've taken what is and made it so much grander. All right. If I had a wound in my arm and I was going to exacerbate the wound, I would make it larger. It is not the exact definition, but it's a simple way for you guys to understand what exacerbate means. To make it more so. So yeah, you Donald Trump is not draining the swamp. He's absolutely filling it with more garbage, unfortunately. The RNC, now under control of Donald Trump's daughter, is not helping to drain the swamp. And the RNC hasn't been great for years. The DNC is not great either. I'm not going to say that. But when you now have the president's kid running it, and they're threatening to primary people who don't align with their beliefs, I mean, it was bad before when they were primarying people, but now you just have one guy who's saying, if you don't capitulate to me as your president, I will remove you. So no longer does the voice of the people matter. No longer does fighting for the people you represent in your state matter. It only matters what the king says. And if you don't do that, the money that we control from all the donations those people give you for this party, we're going to give them to somebody else who will bow down to the king. Think about that this 4th of July. And my Democrat friends, my moderate friends who think that that's pretty fucked up, you're right. And what's going to come up real soon is midterms. We got about a year till midterms. Y'all need to start paying attention. And if things like this keep happening, you need, firstly, I would definitely advise you to vote Democrat. I think it's just better for the people in general. But I don't want to say just vote Democrat. I don't want to say just vote blue no matter who. I definitely think we need good, strong Democratic candidates. And anybody who wants to be a candidate for a Democratic Party, I need you guys to stop shaming people for their feelings. It's not wrong for a conservative person to be afraid of something or to think something. They can have their own values and morals and philosophies. That's fine. They can have their own fears. That's fine. If you want to address them, don't tell them they're wrong to have fears. Allay their fears. Try to help them see facts that will make them not so afraid of those things. Drown them in the facts that will help them to not fear those things. That's how you get through to people. You make them not afraid anymore. You help them see who we are as the compassionate people who care not just about the people on our side. That's not who the Democrats are. That's not who we have been. We care about everybody, even the people who maybe don't agree with us. That's the ideology of being a liberal. It's complete and utter freedom. Not anarchist freedom. I will say that, but it's freedom. We want people to be able to live their lives and believe their beliefs, even if they're not ours. But we have to allow them to connect with us, and we have to reach out to them. We have to show them what their leadership is doing and highlight all of this so they understand that these guys aren't fighting for them anymore. Their congressmen, their senators, they all stopped fighting for their people a long, long time ago. We have to help them understand that. And that's going to take paying real strong attention to things. And part of it that is going to be highlighting BS numbers that this administration puts out, because they are going to lie about numbers. They're lying right now about the jobs report. 147,000 jobs created. Really? The 47th president created 147,000 jobs? Really? You don't think that's a big coincidence? In sectors where we know jobs were cut all over the country? Sectors that in education where we know in my town alone that we lost a large number of teaching jobs. So we know funding is cut to that. Anybody who's paying attention to school board budgets, anybody who's paying attention to town budgets, to county budgets, to state budgets, you know the budget are for all of that stuff are being cut and that jobs are being lost. So jobs were not created for this. The report is just absolutely false. The reality, and anytime that something like that happens, it can't stand. We have to say something. We got to speak up, and we got to try to get to the real truth of the matter as much as we can. And maybe there's not enough, but most states will have their own individual jobs reports for governors. So we're going to have to deal with looking into the different states' reports and trying to tally that up. Um, it's only going to go so far. But I personally would like to see this president impeached after the midterms. I would like to see that we sweep uh, and get more. I don't even care if it's all Democrats. I would like to see Democrats retake the Senate and Congress. Um, but if we get independents in there as well, people who have the ability to stand up and say, no, this isn't right. And I'm not going to be with either party, but I'm going to actually fight for the people in my district. I'm going to, try to do what I think is right. I'm fine with that. But we have to do it based on the facts, and we cannot bow down anymore. And maybe that's the future. Maybe the future is less blue, less red, and more independent. Or, that's the reality of it. But until we can get to that place, right now, until the conservative senators and congressmen will stand up for their people, when they see a bill like this and they say on television that it's bad, it's going to hurt so many people in their home districts and their home state, that they stand up and say, no, I'm not going to vote for this. I'm not going to align with the party. You can primary me if you feel like that's what you have to do, but I'm not going to be the guy who sells out my state, my people. I'm not going to have the deaths of 100 people, 50 people, 1,000 people, or even one person because of a piece of legislation that I signed on the table. Until you get that in the Conservative Party, I don't know how you guys can look at the Conservative Party and believe that your vote matters. I just don't. So, but we can fix this legislation, and we can get rid of Donald Trump, and the country will heal. The country will move forward. Our lives, at least most of us, will go on. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you about that. It's scary. It's dangerous. But your vote matters. Every vote matters. We can't have people holding out anymore. We can't have people going, well, they're both evil. I'm just going to vote for what I think is the best, and just going with their gut or going with their emotions and feelings, and not knowing how government works, not knowing how budget works, not knowing what the facts are. Believing somebody when they smear a woman saying that she slept her way to the top when she absolutely didn't. How we can see this stuff in a world of politics being presented by somebody that we know molested women, admitted to molesting women all his life. I know that he slept with people's wives just to freaking make, just to fuck with them just because he could. We know all this stuff about this guy. How we believe him, an adulterer, serial adulterer who sleeps with people and pays them, and we say that somebody else is the worst. I don't know how we got to this point, but we can't sit aside anymore and let this happen. It's not about voting for a woman. It's not about voting for a man. It's not about voting for a Democrat. Right now, it's just about helping to strike at evil. It's honestly, it's even about giving the Republican Party a spine, because if they're not willing to stand up to one another, they shouldn't have that seat. If they're not willing to fight for their constituents need somebody who's willing to fight for them. They don't have to align with all of their constituents. I'm a Democrat. I'm a county rep. My constituents in my area are mostly conservative. I don't vote for things with a liberal mindset. I vote for things looking at what my county wants to do, or what the cities want to do in their areas, what the people who live there want to do. That's what I look at. It's not for me to make determinations all the time based on what I personally want or what I think the democratic ideology would be if I applied it to that. It's important to look at these things and fight for the people who live there, whether or not you necessarily agree with them. Always for their best interest, though. So sometimes you're going to vote for things that they don't agree with. But I'm gonna tell you what: if you fight for people and you're doing things that help them out, and you can help them see how it helps them, they will start agreeing with you. They will start appreciating it. Their minds will be changed on things. That's how we have to do this. We have to be willing to fight for them, even when the people that they want to vote for won't. That's how we do this. So, red, white, and blue, our republic, our democracy, our beautiful, beautiful America. She's going to be here. And as long as we want her to be here, as long as we're willing to stand up, as long as we're willing to look at one another in the face and recognize a fellow American, a fellow human being, and somebody worth fighting for. And some of us who are still willing to actually go out there and fight for it. All right. So happy 4th of July weekend. Semper Fi. Stay safe out there. You guys have a good one. I'm going to go start having a good one in just a little while.